Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Best in Show Books. I'm Shelby.
I'm Jeanna.
We're here at Naughty Dog Books, an independent bookstore in Nashville, Indiana. And if you're new here, every week we bring you bookish videos at 9 a.m. on Friday. And today we're kind of doing a special series.
Yeah.
That was our goal.
Yes.
So our goal is to go through I don't want to say all because that's like really lofty, genres. And we are just kind of going back on books that we have read recently, some a long time ago. Today, especially, I have ones from a long time ago.
You? Okay.
Yeah, like 20 years ago.
Okay.
We're going to go through genres and specifically pick out books that we loved in them and share them with you in case maybe you missed them or you just want to reminisce on a good old-fashioned read. So this week, we are going to be recapping our favorite historical fiction books. And I think who better to start us off than the reigning queen of historical fiction, our historical fiction book club leader, Jeanna.
The list might have been really long, so bear with me as I narrowed it down to just a few.
Yeah, and while she's getting her notes. So when we were planning, I said, okay, Jeanna, how do we want to do this? And she said, well, I made a list in like a Google Doc.
Yeah.
And she said there are 21 titles in there. And I looked through all 21 and I was like, Jeanna, I haven't read any of these. So she's very well read in this genre.
It might be a favorite. But then again, I go back to my Sunfire books that started this in like the 8th grade. So, it's been an issue for a while.
Yeah. She's got a lot of experience.
Yes. So my first one is Miss Morgan's Book Brigade. And I loved this book. It's a dual timeline. And it's set in, and I apologize, 1918 and 1987, which I thought was an interesting duel.
I remember this one.
Yeah, it was really good. And it's based on a true story. It's based on the real-life American Committee for Devastated France, or CARD, and the volunteers and who used ambulances as bookmobiles, which I thought was a really interesting, and they trained French women to be librarians. So they really thought libraries and books were important enough that they risked their lives and occupied France to be librarians and bookmobile, but they did a lot more, which was exciting too, because this was interesting because it was World War I. And I spend a lot of time in World War II. I think we all do if you write historical fiction. There tends to be a lot more. So this was World War I. And Jessie is the lady's name who is in the 1918. And Jessie Carson, she takes leave of absence from a New York public library and goes with CARD. And she goes across the pond. And this is founded by the famous millionaire Anne Morgan. So think Chase Morgan Bank.
Oh, okay.
So this is a part of that dynasty of gilded America right there, that gilded age. So she founds this program. Arthur's with us today too, so I'm not just petting the air, I promise. And so this group of international women help rebuild devastated France. And upon arrival, Jessie strives to establish something that the French have never seen, a children's library. So you have all these kids that have lost everything, and they're struggling to find happiness, joy, purpose. So the libraries become a refuge for the moms and the kids to come through as they're rebuilding their lives. Because it talks about they still had the IEDs. Is that what IEDs? Sorry,
Explosive devices.
Explosive devices. Yeah. So they're trying to clean up. There's those areas that still, even today, they're still working to clean up. So,
really?
Yeah. It was a really interesting view of history. Then in 1987, there's a New York public librarian who's aspiring to be a writer named Wendy Peterson, and she stumbles upon this idea of what CARD was in the librarians, and nobody's really talking about it in modern history, in modern history classes. So she's consumed with the idea, and she starts to dig into, and she starts to write about their story, and she wants to honor them. And so she actually finds one of the librarians that's still alive. And there's I love the dual timeline of this one. It's really good. So it's a love story to books and libraries and librarians, as well as the war.
And wasn't this a book club pick? Did you guys read this for your book club or no?
I don't remember.
It came out last year, maybe the year before.
We've talked. That's really sad. I can't remember if we read this or not.
Well, there are a lot of books that you guys read. So
yes, I don't remember. That's really bad if I don't remember that one. I know we talked about it in book club.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know that you guys have talked about it, and that a lot of people in the book club have read it.
Yes.
So that's maybe why I was kind of thinking that.
I don't feel like we actually read it for book club, but
Okay.
it was talked about in book club. It's really good, and it's worth a read if you like anything about libraries, France, World War I.
Yeah.
And dual timelines. I love a dual timeline.
Me too.
I think it tells a story really well.
Yeah.
All right, where are we going now?
Now we're going way back in time, way back, like
The Wayback Machine.
from where you were 400 years back. We're going to
wow.
go to Tudor England.
Ooh, I love Tudor England.
With my eyes aglow. I just love it. So I'm going to be talking about Philippa Gregory, and she's not exactly a new author, but these are some of my favorite historical fiction books, one of my favorite periods to read about, and also through today's episode, the books that I'm going to be discussing, most of them take place, I think, like pre-1700. So I think we're going to have a nice balance of time periods.
Yeah. I think that's really cool that you enjoyed that time period.
I love it. So I want to talk about 3 of Philippa Gregory's books that I really enjoyed, and I think they're all very different from each other. It's going to go quickly. Don't tune out. So the most recent one, The Boleyn Trader, I read that last year, and that was one that I recapped in our end of the year when we were making our Christmas ornaments and cutting after that, I felt like I had carpal tunnel or something. My thumb was so cramped up from cutting all those ornaments. Anyways, The Boleyn Trader was about Jane Boleyn, Anne Boleyn's sister-in-law. So she was married to Anne's brother, George. And that story just blew my mind. It was so good. It was so compelling. Jane is kind of this like meek person who gets taken under the wing of a spy master, and she really sees the Tudor court through all of these queens, all of King Henry VIII's wives, starting at Anne Boleyn, obviously. And it was just a really, really well done, compelling, gripping story of, madness, loyalty, like espionage. It was so good. And as I read it, I was totally on the edge of my seat and just so consumed. Loved it. Next, I'm going to talk about The Taming of the Queen. This one was so good. This one I read most recently, and this is an older book. The most recent one is The Boleyn Trader, which, like I said, came out last year. The Taming of the Queen is about Henry VIII's 6th and final wife, Catherine Parr.
Oh, yeah.
And this is another one where I felt it was so tense, and I read it and was kind of stressed out because she's the last wife of Henry VIII, and so she really is seeing him as this older guy. His leg is oozing, and he's super paranoid, and he can't trust anybody, and he will say one thing one day and, not about something minor. He'll be like, this is the law, and then the next day he's like, actually, if you follow that, I'm putting you to death. Yeah. And it was just so tense. And Catherine Parr, was very involved in religious reforms. Oh, yeah. And so that was really interesting. She wanted to create a translation, I want to say, of the Psalms. And so she kind of had to do it secretly. And then Henry was like, hey, why don't you do this? And she was like, oh, what a good idea. And then he was like, how dare you do that? So it was all over the place.
He was the king that went, Catholic, not Catholic, Church of England, all of the...
creating the Church of England and then being this... That played very heavily into this story, the Church of England. And then he was like, I don't care about the Pope. But then he was like, wait a minute, the Pope's on my side.
Yes.
So it was a lot of mental...
all because he wanted to change wives.
stuff going on there. And she became the stepmother to his children. Right. And so that was another interesting dynamic with Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward, the son, the youngest boy, the heir.
Yes.
So I really liked that, The Taming of the Queen. Oh. And then another one that I read by her, this is the last one, and it was called The Other Queen, and it was about Mary, Queen of Scots. Did you read that one?
I have this one. I have not read it, but I have it. I was like, oh, I got to read this one.
It was really good. Yeah. And this is one that if I see something by Philippa Gregory, I'm going to be like, I'll read it. Yeah. I don't really need to know what it's about. Yeah. But I was especially intrigued that it was about Mary, Queen of Scots. And so it's told from 3 perspectives. Ooh. Mary, and then the 2 people who host her, which is really like imprison her. Oh. The Earl of Shrewsbury, make sure I'm saying that right. Yes. George, the Earl of Shrewsbury, and his wife Bess. They are ordered ordered, given the privilege, however you want to look at that, by Queen Elizabeth I to keep watch over Mary, Queen of Scots. She has fled Scotland looking for refuge, and it was a very complex story. I feel like they're all really complex stories.
Well, they are with the Tudors. They're not exactly.
There's always politics. There's always drama, and there was some romance in this one, in an odd way. And I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
It wasn't a weird romance, and I gave the book like 8 stars. So, Arthur,
if you see the shaky camera, that's why.
see, the hook of his tail
gets the cord.
Yeah.
Every time.
So I'll just say this. Mary is a very beguiling woman. She is kept under George's care.
Therefore,
There's nothing inappropriate, but they do become close, and there's a weird, it's kind of like she's kind of captive, but he doesn't really know what to do. He has pledged his loyalty to Queen Elizabeth, and Mary is like, I deserve to be queen, and so it was very complex. But Bess, his wife, she was such a fascinating character because George and Bess, this is not their first marriage. And so she has worked very, very hard to build up her own wealth, her own estates. And so all of that kind of comes into jeopardy with Mary, Queen of Scots coming in. It was a very well layered story. So
I'm pulling this out and putting it on the top of the
Exactly.
This sounds really good.
And I feel like they all go very quickly. And they also make great audiobooks. I just think,
that's true.
I've done a good mix of audiobooks and
I've got a hold on the first one you did, the other Boleyn.
The Boleyn Trader?
The Boleyn Trader.
Yeah.
I have a hold on that on my Hoopla.
Yeah.
I'm ready for the audiobook.
That one I read, but I bet the audiobook would be
great.
great.
I figured the audiobook would be good on that one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
So I highly recommend all of Philippa Gregory's books. And some of you guys have recommended some to me. Tidelands, I know. It's like a little series. I don't know how many are in there, but the first one is Tidelands. And I haven't read that one yet, but that was one that some of you guys recommended to me that I'm really excited to get to. So I love Philippa Gregory, and I highly recommend her books for some good historical fiction. So that was my first group of recommendations. What's your next one?
I'm sure y'all are really shocked that we're going back to the World Wars.
Time Machine. Time Machine, 400 years forward.
Yeah. So The Only Woman in the Room, and it's historical fiction by Marie Benedict. So I really enjoy Marie Benedict's books. I like the way she writes. So this was one of my first books that I read by her at least I think it was one of my first books, because it was this or The Carnegie's Maid. I can't remember which one I read first. So this story is about Hedy Lamarr. And Hedy Lamarr was a film star back in the 30s, 40s. And she was beautiful. She was known for her great beauty. And I remember as a kid watching her movies, but I also remember my mom and dad talking about her being part of World War II. And I thought, well, I didn't really know the story. So this really opened it up. She was a great beauty, but she was from Austria. And her parents were very smart, very educated, and they educated her. So she grew up being very educated, but she also loved acting. So she was an actress on the stage. And so she was really talented, and she became very well known in Austria as an actress. And when World War I ended and World War II was beginning in Austria, she became entangled with a man who was very wealthy, and he was Jewish, because she was part Jewish, I believe. I think at least part Jewish, if not fully Jewish. And he was Jewish, and he was very wealthy, and they fell in love, and they got married. But when Hitler came into power, he switched sides, if you will, and didn't want to lose his power. And he became an arms dealer for Hitler. And he even vowed at one point, signed a paper dismissing and denouncing his Jewish heritage. And she did not agree with any of this, but she loved her husband. But she was privileged to all of these inner circle discussions. And so she got to hear the how the radio signals with the U.S. It's a really interesting. It's very technical, and which is amazing, because she's known as this great beauty, so everybody kind of overlooks her.
Yeah.
She's the pretty. She's pretty. You know,
Yeah,
she just sits
yeah.
in the corner and decorates the room.
Mm.
She's brilliant, and she starts listening to these conversations, and she's very upset with her husband and the fact that he's denounced his heritage. So she ends up with a film contract and leaves Austria and gets to the United States. Basically defects. But she separates herself from that. So when she gets to the United States, you get her history in the film industry and her relationships and how she builds a life here, but how it eats at her that she has the knowledge of this inner workings and how she helps discover some technology that helps it has something to do with the signals for the submarines.
Oh my.
Like it's
Wow.
really, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like sonar technology. Yeah. It was really interesting. So I found this absolutely fascinating, and she was fascinating. And she, as an adult, like later in life in her later career, they want to honor her. And she talks about, she always felt she was the only woman in the room. It talks about her as she felt very isolated because she didn't fit in either place. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a fascinating story. I really enjoyed this one. This was on Marie Benedict book. This was one of my on the higher side, like a 5-star read. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah. So
yeah.
I like all of her books, but this one, I don't know. I think it's Hollywood.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
Old Hollywood. The World War II, dual timeline-ish. You know, I just felt like this whole thing was really good. So there was, I liked hearing about her relationships with Hollywood and how she handled herself because she was smart and she did not, back in, the day when men ruled Hollywood and they wanted the female stars to do things to get parts. And she was like, I'm not playing that game either. She had her own business mind. She was a fascinating lady. So, and a friend of mine said that there is a documentary that's out about her, and it follows the same story. And so I would really like to read that or watch that as well, because this was a good one.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, when we first started the channel, our first buddy read was in Old Hollywood.
Was it?
Yeah, the Chris Bajalian.
Yeah, the Lioness.
Yes, the Lioness.
The Lioness. Well, hey.
I was like, the Safari.
The Lioness. So Marie Benedict has lots of good books. She's got a new one out right now, the
Daughters of Egypt.
Daughters of Egypt.
Yeah.
So that one, I cannot wait to read that. I've started it. I haven't read the whole thing yet. She's got the Carnegie's Maid, the other Einstein. There is
the First Ladies. You read
the
that
First Ladies.
For book club.
We did that. That was a really good story. That one was really good. And then it's the story of Agatha Christie.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Mrs. Christie, I think.
The other Mrs. Christie, or
right.
The Mystery of Mrs.
Christie. That one was really good because it talks about the years that, or the short time that Agatha Christie went missing and nobody knew. Still don't really know what happened. So she kind of fills in the gaps of what may or may not have happened during that time. So that was really cool.
Yeah,
she's got a lot of good ones out there. There you go.
Yes, he said,
There we go.
Okay. Arthur is here for our discussion for our next read. I'm hoping he doesn't sit on my lap because my green sweater will turn white. So the next one is one that I love to recommend, especially. There's probably all this static from his.
Who wants to say hello?
So The Given Day by Dennis Lehane. This is an older one, came out in 2008, and I love this book. This excellent, Arthur.
Okay.
So this I have talked about on the channel before. It's been a long time. So you might need a refresher, or maybe you haven't heard about it. It takes place in early 20th century. It's end of the First World War, Boston, police riots.
Oh, yes.
Mobsters, unions, that type of thing. You're feeling me? And it also takes place partly in Oklahoma with in Tulsa, with right ahead of the Greenwood race riots and like the Wall Street that issue. So The Given Day is very heavily a story of justice, loyalty, family. You have a lot of race relations during that time. You have Babe Ruth. And it is such a good story. It's been about a bajillion years since I've read it. I had my husband read it. He loved it. And then there's a sequel. And so he read the sequel and also enjoyed it. I have read other things by Dennis Lehane that don't necessarily fall into historical fiction. So this is what I'm talking about today. But this is a big one. It's 700 pages. So it's it's going to take you more than a given day
Intense.
to read it. But it's a really, really well done, rich story of this early 20th century time frame that I feel like we don't always hear a lot about in this setting of Boston. You know, it was good. It's kind of gritty.
You're talking about gritty. I was thinking back when we go to the Queens of Crime or Queens of London.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering if it's going to be along that lines of gritty, like that, gangs. And,
a little bit,
Not necessarily the same story, just that if you like that idea of the tougher side of history.
And I think about Far and Away.
Oh, yeah.
So when they come to America and, he's boxing and there are the mob bosses. And I kind of, in my head, the setting was a little bit like that. You have the, what they call them, the ward bosses. That's what they, so it feels like that. So I love to recommend this, like I said, to men or anybody who's looking for a real saga because it is longer.
Arthur and I are going to talk about Finding Margaret Fuller.
Oh, yes.
And it's by Allison Pataki, which this was, I think, might have been my first book by her. And I love the way it was written. Yeah. This was so good. So this is a historical fiction but it's based on a true story of a feminist, intellectual American journalist, Margaret Fuller. Mm-hmm. And so think a transcendental movement. So Poe,
there were a bajillion people in
Ralph
that.
Waldo Emerson. Yeah. There were so many. Louisa May Alcott was her neighbor.
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
They talked about him like he was the hottie of the day. Like,
right.
They would hang posters of him, I think, if they had to, if they could.
Their Tiger Beat posters.
Which cracked me up the way they talked about him. They were like drooling over him, like he's so handsome. And I'm like, Nathaniel Hawthorne? Like, not the way I picture him at all in my head. But this book brought about her to me, and we did do this for our book club, but it was before we started the channel. So we hadn't reviewed this one. So it was a beautiful story of a woman who was brilliant. She was considered the most well-read woman in America. And that was an actual title. She wrote.
That's what I call myself.
I know. Hey, we might have borrowed that title.
Yeah, exactly.
She wrote for papers and newspapers and wrote things that weren't just fluff pieces about gardening or what was happening in the, social circles. She was brilliant. She was the first woman allowed in the library at Harvard, I think it was. So no women weren't allowed at Harvard at all. But she was like, I need to get in this library. So she figured out a way to get herself in the library. She started discussion circles for women, which instead of just book clubs, they would discuss topics of the day, like rights and women, kind of the early part of women's movement. And she would get paid. People would pay $75 or $20 to come listen to her talk, and it was all women. And she and Edgar Allan Poe had a rivalry, which was cool. Ralph Waldo Emerson took her in and let her stay with them, and Nathaniel Hawthorne was his neighbor. So I think Nathaniel Hawthorne, it leans a little bit, was she maybe a muse for him? And she and Ralph Waldo Emerson had a relationship that wasn't necessarily an affair, but they were very connected. And his wife knew that and kind of...
Maybe like an emotional affair?
Yes, because Ralph's wife was very religious, very dedicated to the children, and didn't quite understand his wanting to wander the world and write poetry and, all the things. And Margaret got it. She was like, I get this place. I want to move out here and live on this land and this pond with you. But then she marries, actually she goes abroad to Italy. And while she's there, I did not know this. I feel so unlearned that Italy was not an actual country of Italy until about the time of our Civil War here in the States. It was still occupied and controlled by all of these other, Rome had the Pope,
Vatican.
The Vatican.
Well, that's still an independent.
Right, but they actually ruled part of Italy, Sicily. All of these countries ruled, and they were not their own country. And they were kind of a civil war started happening over there to make themselves their own country. And everybody wanted to rule it, so she was over there writing as a war correspondent or a foreign correspondent, and she was the first female to ever do that. Fascinating story. She falls in love with the people. She ends up falling in love over there. it starts, the very first chapter is her death. So you know she doesn't make it, but then it goes from there and it tells the story.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming home on a ship from Italy and they're bringing their kids.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like the most tragic story. And the fact that she was so involved with so many people in this transcendental movement to never know who she was. I never heard her name ever. And this book, I'm like, I want to know everything about her. So it was fascinating.
This is one I remember when your book club read it. And then I was having a discussion with somebody. I don't know, last year or 2 years ago. And I was like, Jeanna was telling me about this book. Have you ever heard? And people were like, yeah, I know who Margaret Fuller is. So we lived under a collective rock.
Yeah, we did.
Like, she sounds awesome. And how did we not know about her?
And evidently there's another book out there called Margaret Fuller. That is, so when you Google this, you're going to find more than one work about her life. And I'm like, where have I been?
So we are not the most well-read women in America.
No, and the fact that and people are talking about like, yeah, how did you not know that? I'm like, nobody in history told me this.
Yeah, I didn't learn about this.
I learned dates, 1492, sailed the ocean blue.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rhyme for Margaret Fuller.
So highly recommend this book. Very well written. It's beautiful. Louisa May Alcott is like a child in this.
Oh.
She's a little girl and she makes friends with Margaret. And her dad,
oh yeah,
my Lord.
Yeah.
You get a really good picture of what Louisa May Alcott's life was when she was little growing up and maybe why she wrote Little Women.
Yeah.
So it was a fascinating story about a lot of people, but Margaret Fuller especially. So highly recommend.
My next title that I'm going to talk about is one that it's going to be so fun because it's been so long since I read it. It feels new to me. So
I love that.
We're all getting.
Did I read this?
We're all getting something new. It's called "Speaks the Nightbird" by Robert McCammon.
Ooh, that sounds like a great title.
And it is a good title. And the sequel is called "Queen of Bedlam."
Oh,
also a good title.
Yeah.
So I read this. It came out in 2002. I read it around then, I guess. I don't know. And I remember when I was looking up, okay, what should I talk about for today's episode? I was like, what was that one book? And when you Google a few random clues, this also happens when people come to the register and they're like, the book was blue. There's a woman on it. She's turned away. And it was World War II, And
I think it has this name.
Yeah. It was written by a woman. That's kind of how I approached Google to remember this title.
Yeah.
But I loved it so much. It's another chunky one. I think it's, let's see, I wrote it down.
You and your tomes.
It's a tome. It's 800 pages, but it was so good. So it takes place late 1600s in the Carolina colonies.
Ooh.
Yeah, see? Oh, we're also going back in time.
Wayback Machine again.
Yeah. And a young widow has been accused of nefarious deeds within a town. Tragedies are happening, and so they're like, witchcraft, it's got to be her. And they sentence her to death. And a young clerk in the village, his name is Matthew, he's the main character, he gets to know this woman, falls in love with her, not a spoiler, and he takes it upon himself to figure out what's really going on.
Okay.
And so it's a historical fiction meets kind of a murder mystery, meets a little bit of maybe witchy, a little bit of period.
1699, you got to have a little witch in there.
Yeah. So it was very atmospheric, and I remember I loved it. I don't remember if I read the sequel, but I am going to go back and read this one, and I read also the sequel's information last night as I was preparing, and I was like, I need to reread the sequel too. So I remember this was so rich and atmospheric, the Carolina colonies. It's like damp but you've got those like dusty kind of cabin streets and the witchcraft time.
It's an interesting location and time period.
Yeah. I really liked it. And quick preview for my next title also takes place in the 1600s.
We do have our favorite times.
Yeah, we do. We all have our favorite things.
Yeah.
So Speaks the Nightbird by Robert McCammon. Like I said, it's an older one, but I highly recommend it.
I just love the title.
I know.
It feels like you need to read it on a swing.
Speaks the Nightbird.
In the dusk
800 pages.
For the next 9 years of reading this book.
Speaks the Nightbird, my long read for the year. But I remember it didn't take me that long. So,
and that's a good, when you can say it's a large book, but it didn't take you long. That means that you enjoyed the story. When you say it's a long book and it took me 4 months to read it, that's
like a classic or something. Yes, yeah. No, I didn't feel like it slogged. So try it.
I know it's a shock, but World War II. Here it comes.
Like we said, we've all got our favorite times.
Yes. So The Last Green Valley by Mark T. Sullivan, who also wrote Under the
Beneath
the Scarlet Sky. And so a lot of people have read that one, I know. This one was new to me. I did not know the author at the time. I did not know the book. It takes place in 1944-ish, but it's also a saga of the Martell family, Emile and Adeline. They navigate horrific trials caught between warring forces. They are kind of in two lands. So they are German, but they live in Russia.
Oh, wow.
So I learned a lot about Russia at one point. So this came about too with the whole war of Ukraine. I read this. This was very interesting. So it tied some history together that made a lot more sense. So they wanted the farmers from Germany to come over and show them how to farm this very fertile land. And so they gave them plots of land. This is before World War II. So they had like their own like little Germany in the upper Siberia, Ukrainian area. And they were farming and they had made a life. And when World War II happened and Russia and Germany split sides and became warring against each other, the families that were in Russia and the little German area, they now are trapped. They had an opportunity to go back to Germany, but some of them were like, this is our home. We live here. Yeah. We shouldn't have to leave. And that became a problem. So it's a heartbreaking story of these people who don't want to go home to Germany because they don't like Hitler, aren't welcome in Russia, but have to figure out how to survive. So this family, and it's based on a true story.
Oh, wow.
So this family moves and shuffles all the way back into Germany. The dad gets separated along with, I think, a brother and a grandfather, kind of like a German camp, work camp kind of thing. And they're trying to figure out how to get back to each other. It follows them for years. They do end up in America at one point at the end. So it's a saga. It's beautiful. And there is so much history, so much more to the sides of why even now, like Ukraine, like why Russia wants Ukraine back in the Russia because of the fertile ground. And you get some history of how that, it was just fascinating. It answered a lot of questions as to why Russia and Germany started warring against each other and changed side. I don't know. I feel like sometimes you learn very specific things about certain wars. And then when you look at how it tied together from World War I into World War II, and it was fascinating. I loved it. It's beautifully written. It is a heartbreaking story, but it is beautifully written. And I would recommend it highly.
Okay, my last recommendation is also one that I've talked about before, but I had to include it. Also, 1600's Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. It came out in 2001. I read it last year thanks to a subscriber recommendation, and it was so good. It was so good. It's narrated from the perspective of a maid, and her name is Anna Frith, and it is this year of wonders of the plague, and it's basically about this town. The plague comes on a bolt of cloth. A guy is a, like, I don't want to say cloth salesman, but he's
kind of a cloth salesman.
Yeah, kind of. And so he brings it, and this town basically decides to sequester themselves instead of everybody fleeing. And the young pastor in this town says, if we do that, then we're going to spread it. We have to stay here, and we need to keep this to ourselves and try and heal and treat each other. And this is what community does. And so the pastor and his wife very much take that approach, but not everyone in the town does that. And so it was really a really well done story about community, faith, superstition. Why has this come and what can we do about it? It was also, like you described your last book, it really had some heartbreaking parts. If you can imagine, a story about the plague, you're going to lose people you love. But it was so well done. Aww. I loved it. Highly recommend Year of Wonders. This was also, like I said, subscriber recommendation. So I'm so glad it was recommended to me. It's like one of my favorites. I love to tell people about this book. Love a good plague story.
Yeah.
So those are our historical fiction recommendations, but there are so many that we really just wanted to take this last little bit of time to just rapid fire, throw some recommendations your way. You might just have to pause the video if you're like, wait, what was that title? Who wrote that? Because we're just going to throw a bunch out. And they're not necessarily historical fiction. That's why, as in, if you were looking up the genre, it might not come up as historical fiction, but it like blends another genre.
Yes.
So I wrote down a big long list. And these, my husband recommended North and South, the trilogy by John Jakes.
So good.
I was like, that's such a good deep pull. Such a good pick.
So good.
Love that. The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. That is fantasy, but it takes place in the 1500s in Spain. And I thought was so atmospherically rich and moody. Mm-hmm. I love that book.
Yeah.
The Hong Kong Widow by Kristen Lush. That was so good. That takes place over 3 timelines in Hong Kong and America. And excellent. Highly recommend. Leans a little on the spooky side. Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Another saga, probably 600 plus pages. Excellent. They're also going to come out with a deluxe edition of that hardcover maybe next month, in the next few months. So if you haven't read it, the deluxe edition looks really nice. Circe.
Oh.
So good. I was tempted to put some mythology titles in to discuss more.
I did the same thing, and I was like, no, because they're classics and they're mythology, but they're so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another weird one to categorize, I feel like. You know, is it historical fiction? Is it fantasy?
I know.
I don't know. Anything by Laura Purcell, I had to include that. I like the spooky. Kristen Hanna. We both have read Kristen Hanna, but we even said beforehand, we were like, we're not going to talk about her because
she's well known.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody either has read something by her. So The Women, Nightingale,
Four Winds.
Yeah.
Great Alone.
Yeah. So highly recommend her books a lot.
Yeah. We like her.
Yeah.
The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. So good. So rich, moody. Banks of the Thames.
Yes.
And you liked, what was her name?
Kate Quinn?
Yep, Quinn.
Kate Quinn.
Yeah.
Anything by her. Rose Code, The Alice Network, Briar Club, The Huntress, and Diamond Eye are the most recent of hers. She also has an Egyptian series.
Does she?
Yes, and I'm really excited to go back. I just downloaded one of those, and I cannot wait to start it. I think they are a series too. I think they go in like trilogies. So I'm really excited to go back. And she also wrote with Janie Chang, I think is the author's name. So she's got one with her that I also just recently downloaded. So I really like the way she writes. I think her books are she's a great storyteller. She does pick based on true stories, which I love. Reese Bowen is another one that I think is a very unique writer. I really enjoyed her book. The recent one I just did was The Paris Assignment, which was very gritty story about the orphanage in World War II and how they sent some of them to Australia to a convent type orphanage, and the treatment of them was awful. Oof. That was a really rough one to read, but a rough story to read as in I didn't know it existed, and how they treated the orphans was really bad. But it was a great story. It was, again, another place in World War II I didn't know existed. Isabel Ibanez, What the River Knows. I really enjoyed that. That's Egyptian, and it's about the Nile and them unearthing Cleopatra's tomb. There's a second one. I haven't read it yet. It's a duology.
I also was toyed with Death Comes as the End. By Agatha Christie.
So good.
We talked about that last year in an Agatha Christie episode. Obviously, it's a murder mystery, but I felt like it was so well done. The atmosphere and the setting, I could close my eyes and be like, I am here.
Yeah. So if you like the Egyptian feel, follow that one. We just finished The Stolen Queen.
Yes, by Fiona Davis.
And our book club did it. I was really good. It's based on Hatshepsut. That's such a hard name for me to pronounce. I apologize. So it was a really good story because it takes place not modern, but it takes place in like the 1970s. and it goes back, and she is a part of the exhibit, but it's based on her, so they don't use her as a name because they use a mystery around it. So like there's a stolen piece, but it's based on her, and that was really good. So trying to think, there was something else in my brain that was going to come out too.
Was it Catherine Ray? Because you like all of her historical fiction.
Love Catherine Ray. I love all of her. Fiona Davis is another one. The Spectacular was, I just read, she was the Stolen Queen. Yeah. Fiona Davis was the Stolen Queen. So I like her books as well. So there's another, Fiona Vapley is one. She blends a little bit of time travel, spooky, as in there might be something that's attached to this dress that helps guide somebody, but you get the historical side of it. I love The Wedding Veil. There's one, I think it might be called The Wedding Veil. She sews in magic into the veil. And so when the bride gets it, like there's a piece of luck that goes along with it. And there's a veil that travels through history that was never worn. And you get the story of, it was really cool. So you get a historical, but it has that little kind of like What the River Knows. Yeah. Has that little bit of magic touch to it. So there's a mystery, but you get the history. Mystery and history.
Yeah. History.
Mystery. So, and I love The Murderess.
Oh, yeah.
Lori, that's really sad that I can't remember the name, but it's a true crime type historical fiction based on, and it is.
Lori Nataro.
Yes. And it is an interesting book. And I think we talked about it in an episode.
We did.
But that was a really fascinating one. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today as we talk about our historical fiction picks, a few of them, because we have way too many, as usual, to talk about all of them. But if you're interested in any of the ones we've talked about today or in the past, there will be a link below in the comments. It takes you to our bookshop. And so you can order those titles and they'll come right to your door. Thank you guys for watching. We've had a great time discussing these, and we hope you have too. This is Best in Show Books. I'm Jeanna.
And I'm Shelby.
Have a great day.